Hey everyone, in Politics of Energy class, my name is Logan Randall, and today the energy issue that I'll be discussing is sustainable housing. Sustainable housing is defined as housing that is efficient and built or retrofitted in a way that respects resources, optimizes energy and water use, and will last longer with quality systems. Sustainable housing use low impact, high performance materials, and specifically in regards to energy use, there are ways to make homes significantly more efficient. Design solutions such as passive heating, natural light, air movement, and thermal mass can contribute greatly, as can the use of energy from renewable sources such as solar or wind power. The reason why sustainable housing is such a major issue in the United States is that homes in the US use a lot of energy. Residential energy use accounts for around 20% of greenhouse gas emissions from the United States, and 41% of energy consumption in the United States is used to power buildings. Speaking on Bozeman specifically, the energy powering homes and buildings contributes 72% to greenhouse gas emissions. And that's obviously a huge chunk of this city's emissions. And if an energy transition is to take place, it has to include sustainable housing. If the electrical grid can be decarbonized, then the housing sector can meet the reduction targets that have been outlined in the Paris Climate Agreement. From a political standpoint, I want to focus locally on the city of Bozeman because I think that housing really affects all of us here in town. Bozeman does have plans to implement more sustainable housing, and the city is basically trying to lead by example in the construction of their own buildings. This includes the Bozeman Public Library, remodels of City Hall, and their new police department building, all of which get high marks according to energy use and sustainability. They also include sections about sustainable construction in their climate plan. The fact is also, and it's been discussed a lot in this class, but municipalities in Montana have really been hamstrung by the state legislature and their decisions to limit what these local governments can and can't do. Most city governments in Montana don't have a climate plan, so I definitely want to give props and acknowledge that Bozeman does, and Bozeman has set goals. I also want to give them props for prioritizing sustainability in the construction of their own buildings and having guidelines listed on their website. It's also important to note that the Bozeman Climate Plan is really just a plan based on suggestions. They don't have the power, the city doesn't have the power to implement a lot of these things on their own. And it's going to definitely require industries throughout Bozeman to also prioritize energy use and sustainability. From an economic standpoint, these are steps that can save money over time. Sustainable housing is positive economically over the course of time. The lifetime costs of utilizing green buildings are significantly lower. Having daylighting, increased air quality, better indoor thermal control, using less energy in general, these are all things that save money. It can be a higher upfront cost to build sustainably, there's no doubt about that. But construction companies and energy utilities often want to do things as cheaply and easily as possible, and consumers often want to do things cheaply as well. They don't want to have to go out and find someone who specializes in sustainable green construction. But when you look at the lifetime costs of these things, it will ultimately pay for itself. Not to mention that green buildings are better for the community. They put significantly less pressure on sewer services and power generation. To the MSU class of 2070, I would say that there are a number of things that we do today that are completely unsustainable. A big part of that is the ways in which we power our homes, our buildings, and our schools. This ultimately is something that can be done sustainably, and it can be done to avoid high percentages of greenhouse gas emissions. But most importantly, it can contribute to a healthier community. And for people who live and work in these buildings, ultimately they would be healthier as well. I think that given the nature of the issue of climate change and the ways in which our own energy use contributes to it, sustainable construction is something that can save money, it can grow the economy, and it's very, very doable as well. I think it's also important to acknowledge that if you can't, build a sustainable or green quote unquote home, there are still various things that homeowners can do to make their existing homes much more sustainable. This includes installing LED lights, using less water, do larger loads of laundry, unplug appliances and electronics that aren't being used, compose food scraps and other compostable items, and recycle items instead of just throwing everything away. These are all things that can make a current home more eco-friendly as well. And the issue of sustainable housing is really a nationwide issue, but I think that Bozeman offers us the perfect community to zero in on this issue. This is a city that is growing rapidly, more rapidly than most places in the entire country. Housing is extremely expensive, unaffordable for many people here. And I think that Bozeman really offers great opportunity and a great chance to be an example for the rest of Montana. Sustainable residential construction at a broad level would really push this community forward and position it well for the future. And the Bozeman Climate Plan is a great start, but ultimately it's not the only thing that can be done. Bozeman isn't going to stop growing, and at a certain point, I think that private developers need to prioritize the future of the community that they're investing in as well. Thank you for listening.